Why does it feel like you are making progress, but your results never change? You stay busy, you plan, you consume advice. At night, nothing important is finished. The list resets. Tomorrow looks the same, months pass, you are still in the same place. This video exposes one rule that shows how you mistake activity for progress. By the end, you will identify the exact task you avoid and take the first step on it tonight. The Japanese called this Kyojitsu. If this opening feels uncomfortably familiar, consider subscribing and continue walking the Ashen Path. He feels busy, productive always, preparing lists, multiply, systems tighten, knowledge stacks neatly on top of knowledge. He studies, optimizes, consumes. And yet, nothing changes, the body looks the same. The work remains unfinished. The year feels identical to the last, only thinner, less remembered. He tells himself he's in progress. That foundations take time. That patience is wisdom. But the ground beneath him never hardens. Days are filled with motion, but no weight. Effort without risk. Planning without exposure. Movement that never threatens identity. He adjusts routines instead of direction. Refines tools instead of resolve. Polishes preparation so he never has to begin. This is the quiet trap. The mind stays active so the self never has to be tested. Zen would have called this attachment to thought, mistaking mental motion for living action. Bushido would have called it hesitation wearing discipline as a disguise. The Ronin knew this danger. He sharpened steel only to cut practiced forms, only to face consequence, prepared only until the moment demanded decision. Preparation that never ends is not humility. It is fear carefully organized, fear of being seen, fear of failing publicly, fear that the man who acts will be smaller than the man who imagines. So he stays in rehearsal, safe, unjudged, unchanged. Modern culture rewards this man with reassurance. Applause for effort, comfort for intention. Ancient Japan would have offered something harsher. A blade kept forever in its sheath will never know its purpose. A man who prepares without committing is not patient. He is postponing his own reckoning. Progress demands friction, exposure a moment, where retreat costs more than advance. Until then, the days will keep moving, and he will not move with them. The judgment is quiet, but it does not blink. If you are always preparing, always refining, always waiting for the right moment, what you are protecting is not your future. It is your comfort, and comfort. Once chosen, will always ask for more time, until one day. Time refuses. The last Ronin was trained to read deception instantly, on the battlefield. Illusion meant death, a false opening. A stagger meant to invite pursuit. A relaxed grip hiding tension in the wrist, Kyojitsu, the ability to see what is and what only pretends to be. Steel taught this lesson quickly. A man who reacted to appearances did not live long enough to correct himself. But the Ronin learned something more unsettling, something far harder to face. The most convincing illusions are not external, they are internal. A sense of effort that feels like progress, movement that mimics direction, noise that imitates momentum. The mind is skilled at this, too skilled. It constructs activity to avoid exposure, preparation to delay judgment, busyness to escape consequence. Bushido had no tolerance for this. Not optimism, not motivation, not belief, only truth. You either advanced or you didn't. You either held the line or you broke. There was no credit for intention, no honor in almost. Zen sharpened this blade further. Stories were stripped away, narratives burned down to silence, excuses dissolved under stillness. What remained was uncomfortable, reality, unadorned, unnegotiable. The Ronin learned to watch his own mind the way he watched an enemy, where it exaggerated effort, where it dramatized struggle, where it confused motion with meaning. He learned that the ego prefers effort because effort can be admired. Results cannot. Results expose. Modern life hides this. Well, you can optimize endlessly, track everything, refine systems without end, and still avoid the one question that matters: what has actually changed? Kyojitsu does not care how hard you tried. It asks what is real. Now, if nothing has shifted, then all movement was illusion. In ancient Japan, this was not philosophy. It was survival. A warrior who mistook rehearsal for readiness died the first time steel met steel. The judgment was immediate. Final, the last Ronin carried that standard inward. He did not ask if he felt productive. He measured outcomes. He did not trust activity. He trusted evidence. And in that silence, Known truth remained unavoidable. If effort does not alter reality, it is not effort. It is avoidance. And avoidance, no matter how refined, always reveals itself, eventually. Your mind is built to protect your self-image, not your future, not your outcome. Your image, it bends reality to preserve the story of who you believe you are. Delay becomes strategy. Hesitation becomes prudence. Inaction dresses itself as preparation. The mind is precise in this deception. Psychology confirms it. Dopamine fires at intention, not execution. You feel progress without paying the cost of movement. The body stays still. The world remains unchanged, but the ego is satisfied. Zen saw this mechanism clearly. The self clings to comfort through narrative. It speaks in reasons. It hides behind complexity. Bushido was less forgiving. A warrior who hesitated under the guise of thought was already defeated. This is the internal war of Kyojitsu, not between good and evil, but between appearance and truth. The false self whispers calmly, "You're almost ready. Just refine the plan. One more insight and you'll move. You're not like the others who quit." The tone is gentle, convincing, reasonable. That is why it works. Steel never lies like this. The battlefield never negotiates. Either the blade moved or it didn't. Either ground was taken or it wasn't. The true self does not argue, it observes. It notices the unchanged calendar, the identical weeks, the familiar disappointment repeating itself in new language. It knows the quiet truth. Nothing has moved, no bridge crossed, no risk accepted, no identity paid for with action. The Ronin learned to treat these thoughts as he would an enemy feint. He did not chase them. He did not answer them. He waited. Until reality spoke louder than narrative. In that silence, judgment emerged. Not loud, not emotional. Final. If the body has not acted, then the mind has lied. And every time you accept that lie, you choose the false self over the real one. Not by ignorance, by comfort. The war does not end with understanding. It ends the moment you move, or admit you won't. Kyojitsu demands a brutal discipline. You test reality, not intention. Not what you meant to do, not what you planned, not what you suffered through internally. Only what moved. The Ronin measured truth by outcomes alone. Did the blade strike, or hesitate? Did the body endure, or falter? Did ground change hands, or remain untouched? There was no argument after. Steel does not care how much you wanted it. The body does not reward good intentions. The battlefield records only results. This is why Kyojitsu is unbearable to the modern mind. It strips away narrative, removes excuses, silences inner justifications. The modern mind pleads for nuance, context, trauma, complexity. But Bushido was mercilessly simple. If your actions do not alter your position, you are standing still. If nothing in the world reflects your effort, then effort was irrelevant. This is where most men look away. They confuse exhaustion for progress, pain for proof, thinking for movement. They negotiate with reality as if it might soften. Kyojitsu does not negotiate. It stands like a mirror after battle. Cold, exact. Zen sharpened this further. When the self disappears, there is no one left to defend failure. Only what is. The Ronin learned to submit every belief to this test, quietly, ritually, without emotion. At dawn, the body answered for the mind. At dusk, results answered for effort. No praise, no shame, only alignment or deviation. This is why Kyojitsu feels like judgment. Because it is, not moral judgment, existential judgment. You either moved closer to the path, or you did not. And if you did not, no explanation survives the blade. Kyojitsu does not accuse, it does not insult, it does not motivate, it reveals. And once revealed, the choice becomes unbearable. Act and accept the cost, or remain and accept the truth. From that moment forward, ignorance is no longer available, only decision. Water shows truth by its level, steel by its edge. A warrior by his presence under pressure. Not his words, not his plans, not the story he tells himself when the room is quiet. Only what remains. The Ronin practiced exposing illusion daily. Not occasionally, not when inspired. Every day, especially when nothing demanded it. Training without spectators, work without announcement. Silence instead of signaling, no witness, no applause, no borrowed energy from being seen, because illusion feeds on audience. When no one is watching, excuses lose their shape, posture collapses or holds, attention drifts or sharpens. This is where Kyojitsu lives. The false self performs, the true self endures. Neuroscience aligns with this ancient rule. Behavior reshapes identity only when it is repeated without reward, without validation, without immediate return. When effort is not fed back with praise, only conviction keeps it alive. Most men fail here. They work hardest where they can be observed. Train best when approval is possible. Behave only when identity is on display. Remove the mirror, and discipline evaporates. The Ronin removed the mirror on purpose. Early mornings before the village stirred, repetition long after boredom arrived, stillness when the urge to signal burned hottest. This was not humility, it was precision. Bushido understood something modern culture avoids. Honor is what you do when no one can reward you for it. Duty is what remains after motivation dies. Zen sharpened this further. When the self is no longer performing, there is nothing left to protect. Only action, or its absence. Where gaps appear, illusion grows. One skipped ritual becomes permission. One observed compromise becomes pattern. One quiet lie becomes identity. Where consistency remains, self-deception dies, not loudly, not heroically. It starves day by day, repetition by repetition, until what is left is no longer impressive, but undeniable. Truth is not what you intend, not what you promise, not what you explain. Truth is what remains when no one is watching. And if that version of you is weaker, looser, less disciplined, then understand this clearly. That is the real you. Everything else was performance. Ancient warriors did not wait to be deceived. They assumed deception was constant, relentless, clever, patient. So they did not trust feeling. They did not trust intention. They did not trust the story told by effort. They built systems to expose lies, clear standards, binary outcomes, unforgiving feedback, no ambiguity. No comfort in interpretation. No refuge for ego. The Ronin pre-decided his measures of truth. Before fatigue spoke. Before pride interfered. Before fear learned to negotiate. If strength did not increase, training was false. Not almost, not on the way. False. If discipline slipped, structure was broken. Not motivation. Not mood. Structure. If fear remained, preparation was incomplete. Not unlucky, not misunderstood. Incomplete. Steel does not debate the edge. The edge cuts, or it doesn't. The modern mind recoils from this. It wants gradients, explanations, safe language to soften failure. It wants effort to count, even when results refuse to appear. But Bushido allowed no such shelter. A blade that does not cut is not developing. It is dangerous. Zen sharpened this further. When excuses fall away, the self is exposed. No identity to protect. No image to preserve. Only what is. This is why pre-solutions mattered. The Ronin did not wait for proof of failure. He assumed it would come disguised as comfort. So standards were set in advance. When the mind was calm. When judgment was clean, not later. When emotion would bargain, not after. When pride would rewrite the record. Modern application is simple and merciless. You define in advance what real progress looks like. Numbers, distances, completed work that cannot be argued with. You decide what failure is before you feel tempted to rename it. And then, you refuse to negotiate. No symbolic wins, no aesthetic effort, no relief in being busy. Only movement that leaves evidence. Only actions that change position. Only work that costs something real. This is not harshness. It is mercy for the part of you that wants to hide. Because once the measures are set, there is nowhere left to lie, and if nothing changes after this, understand the weight of that moment. It is no longer confusion. It is no longer lack of knowledge. It is choice. The Ronin already knows. Eventually, something collapses. Not your ambition. Your illusions. They do not shatter loudly. They give way in silence. One by one, without ceremony. You stop mistaking intention for motion. Stop confusing clarity with courage. Stop rewarding yourself for thinking about becoming someone else. Preparation no longer feels impressive. Planning loses its warmth. Complexity no longer protects you. You see it clearly now. The hours spent arranging tools instead of using them, the language polished to avoid exposure. The identity rehearsed, but never tested. That version of you grows smaller. You move, not because you feel ready, but because readiness has stopped mattering. You measure coldly, without romance, without mercy, distance covered, work completed, resistance removed. You adjust not emotionally, not defensively. Precisely, this is the weight of Kyojitsu. Reality begins to answer back. Your body responds. Your environment shifts. Consequences appear. No more guessing where you stand. No more hiding inside potential. Bushido honors this moment because honor is not intention. It is alignment between word and result, between promise and position. Zen sharpens it further. When illusion falls away, nothing remains to protect. No image, no narrative, no excuse, only action, or its absence. This is where the internal noise finally stops. Not because you have mastered the mind, but because the mind has nothing left to argue. The man who negotiates daily disappears. The man who decides once remains. The Last Ronin does not celebrate this shift. He does not announce it. He does not explain it. He simply moves differently now. And because he no longer lies to himself, nothing else can deceive him. If something does not change after this, understand the finality of that truth. It is no longer misunderstanding, no longer confusion, no longer lack of insight. It is choice, and the path remembers. If this philosophy resonates with you, subscribe for more lessons from the Last Ronin and the Path of Japan, Bushido and Zen. Truth is not comforting, but it is the only ground strong enough to stand on.